Mm. Oh, that's that cough. How y'all doing this evening? Can everyone, am I coming through live and direct? Can everyone hear me? Can I hear myself? Why does this thing never center? All right. Okay, I hope y'all can hear me. I'm sure I'll be informed in quick order if I can't be heard. Where y'all see that? Hold on. Okay, you can hear me. Wonderful. Thank you. Also, Skipp won't be joining us this evening. He said due to his Christian values, he's not allowed to discuss such sensitive topics in mixed company. Him and what's his name? Mike Pence? Him and President Mike Pence, they don't get down like that. You know, because Mike Pence, remember when he said he can't be alone with the woman he's not married to? I'm joking, of course. I know I'm gonna hear from Skipp. Skipp just lacks any sense of humor. But Skipp is otherwise preoccupied, but he sends his love and solidarity. But it's just gonna be me and y'all tonight. So we'll be able to get through this in good time. And okay. Send link. Okay, I'm gonna send a link so y'all can definitely join in this discussion after I get some points out of the way. Let me just turn down the background music a little bit because it's kind of banging in my ear. Down there. There we go. Now I can hear just fine. Put y'all in the mood because of tonight's topic. We talking about sex and sexuality under capitalism and oppression. And what made me want to broach this topic is because one thing I just saw, a meme or someone was online and said that slut rap, S-L-U-T, slut rap was coming after your daughters, and everyone was so outraged with the BET Awards. And the BET Awards were people said that it was shit and with old girl, Sexy Red out of Missouri, same state as me. And then apparently the Essence Awards, which was supposed to be a bastion of Black women's dignity, and they said they were twerking on stage at the Essence Fest. Thank you. Shows you I'm out of the loop. And then even Dr. Umar had to come in and intervene. And then we had Just Hilarious going to war with a transgender woman. And so Black women are claiming that womanhood is under attack. And then I'm seeing all these people talking about cisgendered people who didn't want to be identified as cisgendered. And there's a revolt against labeling our status as gender conforming, people who conform to the societal standard for our gender and sex, heterosexual masculine men and heterosexual feminine women, feeling that we are so natural and so aligned with God's plan and the natural order of nature that it is no need to label us. You can label the homosexuals, and you can label the lesbians, and you can label the transgenders and the queers and the sissies and the punks, but we don't need a label because we are God. It's kind of like when they say people of color. So you have to specify white people, just people, period, and then people of color, this special, even though the people of the color are the vast majority, it would make more sense to say people of no color, because when you're talking about people in general, since the vast majority of the world has some type of melatonin, keratin, some type of hue, as we understand it to be, and the people who lack hue or who identify white are an extreme minority, that worm ice age mutation, um, it would make more sense to say people and then people of no color. Because if you throw a rock at planet Earth and you hit a person, 85 times out of 100, you're going to hit a black person or a person of that we identify of color. But you know, it was kind of funny to me that cisgendered black people considered that, and I know white folks too, and I know most of this, black people are just mimicking white folks. Most of our positions and conclusions, especially the more reactionary, maladaptive, dysfunctional, irrational behaviors and conclusions that African people have, we imported or been imposed on us by white people or non-white people or Western people or those northern invaders, Islamic intrusions, Judeo-Greco-Roman intruders. But it's still, we claim it. So we got to take some ownership. You know, I see a lot of brothers talk about the repression, the sexism, genital mutilation, and things that come into Africa through foreign powers and foreign interests. And they, you know, want to blame the white man. And I love, that's my favorite pastime. Blame it on whitey. And that's my favorite pastime. But we do, unfortunately, way too many of us as African people and African men in particular have adopted and seek to mimic and replicate our what's been imposed on us and spread it around. So every black man is a victim. Racism, white hegemony, imperialism, colonization, every black man on the face of the earth. But then a significant number of those black men are not simply victims. They become what is called vector. So a vector in the medical or scientific arena is a conduit for pathology. So let's take the mosquito. A mosquito will carry the malaria virus and spread it to others. So that mosquito is a vector for malaria. Or the rat in medieval Europe that would carry the bubonic plague. The rats would carry the fleas and bring the fleas into contact in inhabited areas of humans. So they were vectors. So oftentimes you have people who are victimized. We have people that are victims, and as opposed of rebelling against their victimization, processing from their victimization. I don't like the word healing. I don't like that word healing. It's become a curse word to me, and I'll tell you why. It's a warped concept. But instead of processing and properly engaging with their victimization, they become what is called vectors. So instead of processing the harm, they seek to embody and replicate the harm and impose that harm on others. I use R. Kelly as an example. R. Kelly is an individual who suffered massive amount of abuse, if we are to believe his story, and I have no reason to doubt his siblings and the people who grew up with him, that he was targeted by predators and he grew up to be a predator. So he is a victim, but he had become a vector. Instead of processing the harm that was done to him and coming up with healthy mitigation, healthy coping mechanisms, and therapy and treatment, he decided to relieve himself figuratively and literally by imposing the same or even more intensified harms on others, which makes you a vector. So anyway, we as a people have been subjected to quite a bit of exploitation, demonization, dehumanization. And many of us have internalized that, and we begin to subject other vulnerable populations, other members of our community, or other targeted or vulnerable populations from outside our community with many of the same mistreatments or maltreatments. And within our community, within our race, we very often seek to set up and establish those hierarchies that we've been subjected to. Those same hierarchies that we've been subjected to, we seek to reproduce. Sometimes it's because it is familiar to us. And if you know anything about the abused child syndrome, many times they find those unhealthy environments because it is familiar, because it is all they had known. They, as much as they are harmed by those environments, they also have comfort in that environment, and they have in that environment because it's all they know, and it's because there's it's familiarity. And many times when I worked in trauma centers, abused children will come into the emergency room with their abuser. And when the authorities or the staff seek to separate the child from their abuser, the child will violently fight to remain connected and to remain with their abuser. So that happens on a larger societal scale. So to say all that and to engage with all that, it's funny to me that we are having these back and forths, all these internal divisions, targeting all these various groups and identities, and totally missing the mark, completely missing the mark. So I want to talk about sex and sexuality under racism, under oppression, under capitalism, because I think if you're going to have any position on sex and sexuality, whether you are of the opinion or you've drawn the conclusion that it's only natural, there are only two genders, and I'm not cis. It's just funny to me. But you have to look at everything in the context of capitalism and oppression. Or as Dr. Wade B. Nobles has stated or restated or reworked from Neely Fuller, until you understand white supremacy, everything you believe you know will only confuse you. So we have the Black community taking a position that the gay rights movement, that homosexuality is being imposed on the Black community by the white man. I've even have some notable Black scholars say that, well, there was no homosexuality in Africa until the white man came. And you have another segment of the community that says, well, no, it is white supremacy, the repression of gender nonconforming, the repression of two-spirit people, the repression of men that don't fit the gender norms and women who don't fit the gender norms. The persecution of them came out of Europe. And so we have two factions in our community who are fighting towards the opposite end goals and drawing opposite end conclusions and claim to be fighting the same source. And they can't even really get to the source because they can't even agree on what the enemy is doing. So you have these various factions in the community attacking each other about what, and fighting over each other about what the oppressor is doing to us or has done to us. So because of that, and due to that, we end up on what I call the hamster wheel. We're putting out a lot of energy, we're putting forth a lot of effort, and we're literally going nowhere. The main target, the main oppressor, our primary attacker goes untouched and unnoticed. Or as Kanye West said, and the white man gets paid off of all that. And the white man gets paid off of all of that. So if you're going to talk about whatever your positions on sex, sexuality, gender identity, you have to do at least two things. number one, analyze it in the context of oppression, and analyze it in the context of capitalism, and analyze it, well, I guess this is three things, in a radical point of view to say, what conclusion can I draw and what positions should I take that will liberate me and my people? What is the liberation, radical, revolutionary position, point of view, approach to any of these issues? And I know doggone well, I'm not going to be able to, because I wish I could just go and say what it is. But so many people, man, it's so hard to talk about this because so many people already are locked into their positions. And I know, Lord, I know I was. I was extremely radical, pro-Black, RBG, revolution, free Black people. And my views on this issue were firmly rooted into my Christian upbringing, my Christian grandmother, my great uncle, who was a Baptist minister, my great grandparents, my beloved great grandparents who were met, which is funny. My mother called me today. I got something going on, some family news. My mother called me today and said that she's now Kojic. She's Pentecostal. And I don't know about some of y'all, but my family been going through it as far as this Jesus mess. Because my family started off way back in slavery as AME. We came off the plantation Methodist. And we were Methodists from the plantation. I mean, from colonized, I guess my ancestors were, because like KRS once said, if your slave master wasn't a Christian, you wouldn't be a Christian. So we came off that plantation. Late 1800s, Methodists. And I could go all the way back to I had Reverend Streeter, was my great-grandfather's great-great-grandfather. And he was born into slavery. And after slavery, he became a farmer and a minister. And he was Methodist. And he all the way down to my great-great, almost a century of being Methodist. More than a century of being Methodist. Up to I think it was 87. My family was hardcore Methodist. Then my great uncle, my great grandfather's only son, my great uncle, Gene Bowie, became a Baptist. He said the Lord just came to him one day. He lived a life of sin. He lived a worldly life. He was a womanizer and a drinker and a philanderer. And the Lord convicted him and knocked him off his heels and said, boy, I want you to go forth and preach my word. And he's like, fine, I'll preach your word. And he's like, no, I didn't finish. Let me finish. God said, let me finish. Can I finish? He said, I want you to preach my word in Baptist, and I'm going to put you in Palestine, missionary Baptist. So he became a missionary Baptist, which was a shock to my family. And great-grandpa Bowie and great-grandma Bowie, when great-uncle Gene was in the streets, out there with his hair conked out and his tight pinstripe suits, out there nickel and diamond and hustling and philandering, they prayed to the Lord and said, Lord, save my son's soul. And so when the Lord saved his soul, they expected to say him to be a Methodist. And when he was a Baptist, my whole family jumped over to Baptist. My first days in the church, I went to the Methodist. And if you know anything about Methodist, it's a subdued church. It ain't all that shucking and jiving and them little dance and getting happy. We didn't do that. Then we went to the Baptist church and they getting happy. And so my great-grandparents, my grandmother, my great uncle, we all moved over to Baptist. And then my other uncle, my mother's youngest brother, the Lord called him. And so we was riding everybody's coasting Baptist. We all the older people in my family felt a little tinge of guilt for abandoning the Methodist church, but they said now the whole family, all the Jeffersons, all the Bowies, all of them, we all Baptists. And now my mother was the first and even me, when I became an atheist, I'm still Baptist, because something you got to realize about Baptists, they believe, like, that's why I'm sitting here. I'm an atheist to the core. I don't believe none of that mess. But my grandmother looked at me when I told her I tell you all the time, my grandmother was more outraged when I told her I was vegan than when I told her I was an atheist. My grandmother was much more outraged. She was much more concerned about me becoming a vegan than a Baptist, because the Baptists believe what God put together, no man can render asunder. When you make a covenant with God, you can't break it. So not all Baptist sects, again, for every, there was an old saying, I don't remember where it come from, but every man is a denomination unto himself. They believe under Protestantism. Protestantism was supposed to smash the hierarchy. And instead of having the Pope be your conduit to God, every man has a direct link to God and can talk to God directly. You don't need to go to a priest and ask him to forget and confess your sins, and he gives you Hail Marys. You don't have to do that anymore. Under Protestantism, all this cracker mess we done took on. Under Protestantism, you can talk to God directly. So if I make a commitment to God, profess Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior before his flock, before the fellowship, and I am dipped in that water and brought up, I am a new man, and no one can render that asunder. That's why Christian heaven, Baptist, Protestant heaven, is going to be full of some of the most vile people you ever want to meet. Because all you got to say is, forgive me, Lord. And every sin is forgivable, up to and including being a murderer, being a PDF file. All of that is absolutely and totally forgivable. Only thing the God, Lord, won't forgive is taking on another God. And I haven't done that. I haven't adopted any God. I've rejected old gods. So you people worshiping the wrong God are going to be more in trouble than the people who don't. But anyway, we were settled in that and believe that if covenant and a contract with God, you can't break it. So if you are saved, and I went through all the stuff to be saved when I was like 12 years old, and apparently I had enough sense to make that commitment. And I went through all that, and we were all Baptists. We had finally, the family was broken up for a while on my mama's side, some Methodists. It took a little long, but we all became Baptists, everybody Baptist. And now my mother didn't join Kojic. She didn't went Pentecostal. And my uncle, her baby brother, who's a minister, like, you Pentecostal now. So now it's back. The religious, the religious war, the theocratic denominational conflict has returned to the Bowie offspring, to the Bowie legacy. The Bowie Jefferson legacy is back at theological warfare. We was all going to be on the side when Jesus came back and the war of Armageddon came. All my family was going to be on one side. And my uncle's hymn, where we would sing every Sunday at Covenant Missionary Baptist Churches, I'm on the battlefield for my Lord. I'm on the battlefield for my Lord, and I promise him that I'll serve him till I die. Yes, I'm on the battlefield for my Lord. But now we're on separate battlefields again. Not that matters. I just thought that was interesting. And see, my wife, her family, they all Christians too, but they like, I don't know what you call it. My uncle used to call them churchianity. They're not Christianity. They're doing churchianity. They like Easter Sunday Christians. Like they go to church from now, but we would go to church all Sunday morning for like 4-5 days a week. Usher board, like really, my peoples was up in there. Like my people for real church. And her family is like casual Christians. So when I went and told my wife, I was like, I talked to my mother this afternoon and she told me that she's Pentecostal now. And my wife looked up from what she was doing and then just went back to what's like, and so what? But that's serious business, in my people. But anyway, back to what we talking about? Sexuality under capitalism and oppression. Back in the 60s, they had this thing called the sexual revolution and free love. And that was in response to the capitalist goals. Our oppressor's goal was to turn every interaction into a commodified transaction. Skipp Coon is not going to be here today. I'm sorry if you tuned in for Skipp, but he should be back next broadcast, next time radical. But anyway, the goal of our oppressor is to turn every interaction into a transaction. You know, and a transaction that will generate profits for the elites and sustain the status quo. So extract wealth and sustain the status quo. And so free love was thought that if we could take the most intimate engagement, the most intimate connection that we have, and remove that or release the shackles, stop with the puritanical religious restrictions on sex or the economic or even the social standards and social norms and social stigmas related to sex and love, then that will trickle down or trickle up or reverberate into other forms of contact, into our relationships with non-intimate, non-sexual relationships, in familial relationships. If we can remove the social pressure, the social stigma, the economic pressures related to intimate contact, that will reverberate. And even though there was some merit to that idea or philosophy or tactic, I think, well, I've concluded and I've observed that there's no such thing as halfway liberation. You can't be sexually liberated without economic, social, political liberation. You can't be liberated in the society without being liberated within yourself. You can't go out and fight for political liberation or political justice while living with having justice within your community or in your home. A lot of people try to compartmentalize. We have a lot of Black leaders, a lot of Black movements, a lot of Black demagogues and cults that are literally trying to destroy racial hierarchies while reinforcing and legitimizing age, social, and gender hierarchies. People are literally treating liberation like it is a marketplace where you can go to the market, to the liberation market, and get your liberation basket and pick and choose the freedoms that you want. There are some Black people that want to go to the liberation market and say, well, I want to close the economic gap. I want to close the gap between the wealth of whites and the wealth of Blacks. I want economic freedom. But as far as the gender hierarchies, the man is the head of the household, they want to keep that shit. You have a lot of sisters that go out here and say, INDB, do you understand me? They want to be independent. They want to be independent of the gender hierarchies. They don't want to, I ain't no man, I ain't submitting to no man. But then they want to and enthusiastically embrace the economic hierarchies. So I want to get rid of the gender oppression, the gender hierarchy, the gender dominance. I want to get rid of patriarchy, and I'm going to embrace capitalism. And that was really shown with that. Oh, Lord, I don't know why I'm going to try to say her name. Who that girl who had the thong on and her boyfriend said, you're a mom, and was like, you shouldn't be out there in the thong. What's that sister's name? God damn it. Oh, so the comments gonna leave me hanging? This is the first time I ever reached out to the comment section, and the comment section did not reciprocate. Kiki Palmer. I know I was about to go off, man. I was about to say, if I can't depend on the comment section, who and what can I depend on? A lot of people gave the answer, but I appreciate it, Kamar. Kiki Palmer. So a lot of sisters stepped up and be like, this man ain't got nothing to say because she make more money than him. And she even came out and busted a freestyle and was like, you can't tell me nothing because I got my own money. I got my own car. Right? I love her because she's got her own. She don't want mine. She said, leave mine alone. So I got all my own shit, so you can't tell me nothing. And a lot of sisters out there like, yeah, you go, girl. And so it's not just men. Black men and black women have been caught up in this commodification. And it's really weird that sisters would rock with that because even though Keke Palmer is the exception, it's not the rules. So if you can say Keke Palmer, man, don't have no right to tell her nothing because she got all the money, 9 times out of 10 in that relationship, it is the man with the resources as a result of patriarchy. The man has the money. So, and then when the man says, I do what I want, because I got the money, we understand that's to be unjust, unfair, and unjustified. So I'm saying we're all infected. We are all infected. And they like to talk about the woke mind virus. No, the capitalist mind virus. The capitalist mind virus is much more pervasive. You know, in fact, wokeness is an inoculation to the true virus, this true brain rot that is commodification. So the sexual revolution failed because it can only exist. It can only exist alongside everything. There's no such thing as halfway liberation. That's where a lot of black people also get confused with our Islamic and Christian and to a lesser extent, Jewish indoctrination, black Hebrew Israelites, where we're like, man, you know, other people trying to rise up. We black people trying to get liberated. And here come the immigrants. Here come the gays and the lesbian, transgender, queer, intersex. You know, here come all these other people. Here come African migrants and Caribbean migrants when black Americans trying to get freedom, which is really fucking stupid because this is how it works. And this is how enslavers, colonizers, genociders always work. What enslavers, colonizers, genociders, oppressors always do, more often than not, they are outnumbered by their target. So we all talk about divide and conquer. I hear everybody, you talk to any black person, you talk, oh shit, whew, spilled my water. Oh, that's nice and cool. That was good. Anyway, you talk to any black person, any person who believes themselves to be subjected to any system of exploitation, abuse. We always hear people use words, but they don't comprehend them. Divide and conquer. I see so many people talk about, yeah, they divide and conquer. It's divide and conquer. And in the same breath that they call out divide and conquer, they begin to divide themselves to be conquered. So what the oppressors, enslavers, colonizers, genociders, oppressors do is they always target, they find any opening in the society, anybody doesn't like. The barbarians, any type of group that they can get the other victims to gang up on. You know, in medieval Europe, it was called Jew baiting. They'd be like, oh, let's get the Jews. The Jews are stealing babies and spreading their bloods over the door. The Jews are killing Christian babies. While the monarchs are robbing everybody blind. They had all the peasants running around talking about the Jews. And then sometimes the Jewish peasants and the Christian peasants would be like, this is a game. This is a trick. They tricking us. And he's like, we are tricking you because it's not the Jews. It's actually the gypsies. It's the Roma. All those dirty Romas. Oh, it's the barbarians. It's the Franks. And then every single time they identify, just like the Nazis, which is probably a more visceral example because we've all been taught about the plight of the Jews. And we know why. So the Jews didn't come out I mean, the Nazis didn't come out and say, we want to get rid of all the Jews. They came out and they looked around society and be like, who can we pick on? Who can we identify? First, they said the communists. And when they said the communists, even the Jews, the Jewish merchants, the Jewish jewelers, even many of the Jewish academic and artisans were like, yeah, get them. Get those dirty, stinking communists who want to take my Jewish landlords. And then they were like, and you know who else is causing problems? Who is a burden on society? Who is a threat to our children? The infirm, the feeble-minded, the cripple. And we're not trying to do anything but make the society more healthy and fit. And then they go to the Jews, and many of the people, it's just the same old hustle. The same old hustle. And they use the exact same identical tricks. Guess who the right wing, the racists, said was a threat to family values, was a threat to white women, was a threat to white children, who was contaminating and corrupting the culture of the society. Black men used to fit in that description. Asians and Asian men used to fit in that description. Italian immigrants, Italian Southern European immigrants, Latinos. Guess who the right wing said was a threat to women in public spaces? When your daughters go swimming, when your daughters go into locker rooms or public baths, when your daughters in exclusively female places, there are these predatory individuals who will come in there and prey on and corrupt your daughters. They used to say that about lesbians. They used to say lesbians were the threat. Black men were the threat. And they were like, well, now the lesbians didn't work their way through the door. We didn't let the lesbians in the door. They didn't let the lesbians in the door. And now it's the transgenders and even the lesbians, even the women, even the black people have all been like, yes, the same people that are protecting y'all from the transgender, the gender mind virus, or the gender insanity, destroying the gender, saying the exact same shit. The same motherfuckers that y'all thought were going to protect y'all from transgenderism, cutting off the genitals of children, even though we have no examples. We have no examples. We have no examples. They're cutting off the genders. They're mutilating children. And then the motherfuckers pass anti-drag laws, and transgender and drag are two separate things. I'm sure there are transgender people who want nothing to do with drags, and there are drag people who don't do nothing with two separate things. And then we turn around where woke goes to die in Florida, and they telling us slavery was a job training program, the same motherfuckers. And y'all was high-fiving these same crackers that was protecting, keeping the transgender women out of the bathrooms. Y'all high-fiving and be like, yeah, that's what we said. The Democrats want to turn us all to men to women and women to women. And then you find out their real agenda. They want to not only bring back the death penalty, fund the police, they also want to reduce the standard for imposing the death penalty, meaning that you don't need a unanimous jury. They want to make it fewer appeals, and they want to expand the incarceration machine. They want to defund schools and put more money into the police. And y'all are supporting all this shit in the hopes that some transgender woman is not in the same dressing room as your daughter or your wife or your sister. It's all a hustle. It's all a game. And we fall for it every motherfucking time. And you see Jess Hilarious and these other people talking about trans women taking away your rights, when it is the very people, the right-wing Republicans, who are the ones taking away your rights. And you're fighting against this specter, this idea that transgender women are going to somehow take power. And when they take power, they're going to intend to unsubstantiated, to delegitimize cisgendered women. Don't call me cisgendered. I'm just a woman. And they're going to do that. And all the time you're fighting against this looming threat that doesn't exist. You're ignoring the actual people that are literally in the state and federal legislature taking away your rights. Taking away, we've already having women right now that aren't able to secure abortions with ectopic pregnancies, that are having septic, dying of sepsis, and all this, and it's all by design. And you look at any person, would be like, yeah, you ever heard of this thing called divide and conquer? Yeah, they always try to divide and conquer, while they're literally standing on division, divided and conquered positions and views. They're literally standing on it. And the same thing that they're saying about transgender, about their corrupting influence on society, they've taken all the power. It's the same thing they said about black women. They said black women are not real women. They can't control themselves. They're insidious. They're deceptive. They are corrupting influence and corrupting impact. And the same people that were selling all this on black women were at the same time were preying on black women, lusting after black women. The same people that are saying this all about transgender, gender nonconforming, queer women are the same ones lusting after it. Let's just for an experiment. I'm going to go to Google. And I'm going to type in, I'm going to let y'all see me in real time. Okay, share screen. Let's see. Is this it? Nope, that's the wrong one. Okay, here it is. I'm going to do this in real time, y'all. Right? I'm going to type in RNC. You see that? Republican National Convention. And then, I don't know, let's think gay prostitute. I just, and it says male escorts are making a killing off of closeted gay RNC. That's just one article. Male escorts are making crazy money. Business is booming for gay at Republican convention. Despite anti-LGBT, Tampa Bay. These are all different years. The 2016 convention, the 2012 convention. Oh, that's a YouTube video. The gay prostitutes are gearing up for a flood of closeted Republicans. Republicans can't get enough of Cleveland's male escorts, right? So at the same time, these people are talking about this every year. I've been hearing about this. I've been a student of political science since 94, 95. And every political convention, every town that the Republican National Convention, these family valued Republican goes to, there is let's see something. I don't want to, I just don't want something salacious to pop up. Okay. I can't pull this up. But anyway, you can go look it up yourself. I'm not trying to get a Black Power Media just got banned. But if you go look up the various statisticians and online researchers, you'll see, or even okay, I'll just pull this up. This ain't got to, because I put some of it up. I want to keep this. Data finds Republicans are obsessed with searching for transgender porn. You see the red states? These are all the major Republican areas that search. So these people are not afraid of transgender. They don't think that, and they have no illusions about transgenderism taking over America or transgender women replacing women. They have no fears of that, but they can utilize that and impose those fears, demonize a targeted population, and they like targeting these vulnerable populations because if these vulnerable populations are being targeted, then they have to go underground. They can't work jobs. They can't attend school. They can't, which I don't think anybody should, enlist in the military. So these same populations that they are obsessed with, that they're trying to objectify and prey upon, are more vulnerable. At the same reason why they don't really want any significant labor reforms or immigration reforms, because vulnerable, targeted, hounded, demonized population are what they need for the ongoing maintenance of capitalism and the capitalist status quo. So they do want to drive not just transgender, but LGBTQ people back to their proper place in society, which is outside of the view of the mainstream, so that they can exploit these populations and obsess and satisfy their repressed desires for these populations, while the rest of us, the masses, who are also being exploited, can live in a world in a world that we believe that we are the standard, we are as God designed us. It is all bullshit. And I'm telling you, as my wife says, as Dr. Mingo says, you can't call freedom with your foot on someone else's neck. One of the issues with being a true leftist, a true revolutionary, and not being a reactionary is that you cannot be selective when talking about liberation and freedom and oppression. You cannot participate or advocate or allow for one form of oppression, or even deprioritize or delegitimize one form of oppression as you advocate for and embrace liberation in another arena. It never, ever works. You have to fight all oppression on all fronts, even in the arena of intimate relationships, in the arena of sexuality and gender identity. You either have to fight for justice and freedom or you don't. And if you are picking and choosing, if you're talking about a black man, or if you're even talking about black Americans to the exclusion of Nigerians, if you're talking about black able-bodied people to the exclusion of the disabled, you are not fighting for liberation. You are fighting for elevation within the status quo. If you are allowing some form of unjust hierarchy, some form of oppression to exist, or you support, or you neglect and ignore, you are not fighting for freedom. You are fighting for elevation within an unjust, non-free system. I'm not sure why that is so hard to figure out. Many of our ancestors had not yet figured out. There are many of our ancestors really have concluded that, well, once the black man, we believe in trickle-down revolution and trickle-down economics, but we believe in trickle-down revolution. Once the black man gets free, then we'll see what we can do about these sisters. Once the black American we get our reparations, we see what we can do about Africa and the Caribbean and Latin America. You know, once the real natural black man, when the black Muslim, and we keep playing this game to the point that our oppressors and enemies understand that, yeah, if you give some attention, some level of support to this particular faction or this particular group, they will guard that little bit of freedom, that little bit of status that they have so aggressively that we won't even have to beat down all the other up and coming groups. They'll hold on to that and fight for that so aggressively that they will. Right now here in Chicago, we got black oppressed people in Chicago. We got black oppressed people in Chicago who are mad at and waging war against the migrants who the Florida and Texas governor has put refugees from Honduras and other parts of Central and Latin America on buses and brought them here and dumped them at City Hall or dumped them at homes of other people. And as we go up, my wife and I just surveyed one of they are literally sleeping out inside of police stations. And these are young men, women, and children. And it has been found that the policemen are sexually exploiting these young women, preying upon these young women. I see them over in Hyde Park. They're there. They panhandle. They look for daily work. And Black people are outraged. And I really look at some Black people like, before these immigrants got here, out of Chicago was a Black utopia. And you don't see them on the Gold Coast. You don't see them in the affluent white areas. Because I was just up in the affluent white areas because they got a vegan donut shop up there. So we was just up in Lincoln Park getting us some vegan donuts, and I didn't see none of them. You see them. And so now they've created this confrontation between Black Chicago, which has legitimate gripes, and refugees, victims of U.S. imperialism, who have legitimate gripes. And we're fighting over getting in the front of the line of legitimate gripes while nobody's talking about the corporations and the elite families that have run this city for decades, that have ran this city off the rail. It's a hustle. So until we figure this out, and we don't need absolute unity. We just need to be clear on what we want, even if we have different methods of getting there. But we have to be able to define who's really about freedom and who isn't. Who really is about freedom? But let me go just to talk about that. And just to discuss that. I'm going to open this up because the comments are just going. I real talk, I can't keep up with the comments. So I'm going to open it up. I'm going to share the links. And we can make this a discussion because I don't think we're going to solve this tonight. But all I got to say is if you are ignoring, indifferent, or supporting the repression and unjust hierarchies, abuse, targeting, or demonization of any other group, you are not on the side of justice. You are not seeking liberation. Ain't no such thing as halfway revolutionaries. So, and I guess I can't. I got a lot of notes here. What time? And then we almost an hour in, and if Skipp ain't here carrying half the weight, so I for sure ain't about to go overtime tonight because we went like over an hour over. So I'd like to share the link. Now you can type in your question, comments, and criticisms. But before that, I do want to acknowledge our supporters, the people who help fund, finance, and support Black Power Media. DC Joe Black, his channel is very necessary. I agree. And I was very flattered when I was invited to become a broadcaster and a participant with Black Power Media. I couldn't say no. My only problem with Black Power Media is what took them so damn long. They was around for like a year before they reached out to me. Where they do that at? So with that, I'm going to share the link. You can come on live. Unless you're that one dude with the plants who thinks his plant setup is better than me. So you can come in live, or you can type your question, comment, criticism in the comments, and I can get it that way. It's hot in here. Because if y'all don't want me to continue jawboning, because I'm afraid I'm going to say some things I didn't have to say. And I'm going to say them again if I have to. Okay. Oh, motherfucker. God damn it. Did I tell y'all? Let me see if anybody else jump in before I put this dude on. Brother. Oh, let me bring it. I could do the close-up so we can't see the background. Can't nobody see nothing. Got your ass. Now, what you want, man? You keep ignoring the ban, and Skipp ain't here to protect you.
I'm sorry. I had notes. I'm trying to consecrate my mind.
Okay. Well, let's just focus on the topic. We ain't gonna talk about nobody's plants. God loves all plants equally. All right.
Dang, I had notes, man. You ain't right for that. You did that on purpose too.
No, you did that. You banned it. Here
So,
I am letting you come violating the rules.
well,
Have you
that's
read the terms and conditions?
well, no, it's just because I noticed that I'm is a smart, smart cookie. So I
Okay.
had a little something for you. So in the comments I had shared a book that I would invite everybody to get onto.
Mm.
It's called Refusing Compulsory Sexuality by Sharonda J. Brown. And I just want to share just a small little excerpt. Compulsory heterosexuality works to frame heterosexual sex as a necessary fixture of adulthood, which leaves all queer people in a space of extended liminality, hard word, where our partnerships, relationships, and sexualities are devalued and invalidated because they do not fit this mold. Queer narratives always disrupt a chrononormativity and an adulthood that is defined by cis heteropatriarchal values, and asexual queerness distinctly challenges the idea that we need to grow up in the way that cis heteronormativity demands at us. Now, first off, I love this book because for me personally, she put a lot of verbiage to concepts that I did not understand, and my favorite concept in that, and just because it's so obviously chrononormativity, right? That's so
Mm.
obviously, or the norms of adulthood. That's so obviously Black people couldn't, Africans could not fit into that if they wanted to, right? So when we come to issues of sexuality and gender, I guess at this point I want to segue to a question, Diallo. Would you say that it is a lack of knowledge of African history, or is it just history in general that people aren't aware of? Because to say that any deviation from the colonized gender norm is, they didn't, I remember you were saying, somebody was saying, oh, they didn't have queerness in Africa before the Europeans came. And I don't know, I also, another book that I'll invite the everybody to check out on is The Invention of Women. And I won't try to pronounce the author's name, but she has a gender analysis an analysis of Western gender discourses, and compares that to Yoruban history, pre-colonial Yoruba, wherein there were no words, even in some cases, for man and woman. She goes on to explain that the very word king was in fact manufactured into African dialects. In many cases, again, right? I understand I'm saying some pretty controversial things and stuff like that, but just to that note, on a basic history note, right? This scholar
Uh,
at UC Santa Cruz and wrote this book for us.
right. Well, to answer your first question is the lack of knowledge of history. I think we give too much weight to history. We demand too much of history. There's been a lot of rhetoric about when the black man rediscovers his history, we will awaken. I just don't see evidence of that, because a lot of times the human mind is such a magnificent evolutionary organ that you can have a view or a position based on one fact or one belief. And we have found that when that belief gets discredited through facts, many of the people who believe it become more entrenched. And let me give you an example of a historical myth that got obliterated, and it caused the people who believed it to double down. There was the myth that civilization and humanity was founded by white people. White people believed that the Adam and Eve myth was true, and that Adam, a white man, and Eve, a white woman, were the mother and fathers of humanity, and that the racial divisions were literally a byproduct of a curse of Ham. And God marked the various races of man to denote who is his chosen, who is in his image, and who is to be scorned, or who is designated to be the subservient race. In the Aryan myth, the Anglo-Saxon myth, there were all these myths that abound to justify the racism and racial hierarchies. And science, archaeology, historical research determined that not only were the white man and white women were not the original man and woman, that Europe is not the home of civilization, democracy, or even monotheism, but the origins of man and kind are not only much older than the Europeans had concluded, but rooted in and still within Africa, where on the African continent, there is more genetic diversity between Africans on the continent than any other population in the world. You could take two Africans that live in neighboring village and they have more genetic diversity between the two Africans in neighboring villages than an Asian man and a white man on opposite sides of the planet. And did white people say, well, we're not the first. We're not made in God's image. The world, culture, society is much older than I believed it was. And everything, every historical data point, every historical belief that I based my supremacy in has been disproven and upended, not by those I oppress, but by my own science, by my own researchers, by my own scholars. Did they change? Did they say, okay, time to flip this shit? No. What did they say? They went from saying, we are superior because we are superior because we are the original, to saying we are superior because we are the pinnacle of human evolution. The last is superior because man has evolved from a low status of an ape to a high status of a European. So being the last makes us first, when being the first made us first before the history. So we see that with history. You'll see that when Africans are confronted with Africans or Black people are confronted with historical realities that are inconsistent with their current or contemporary view, right? Do they change their views or they change the history? So I say all that to say is, as much as I believe history is valid, history is a blueprint and a map. If you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. I believe that historical understanding will give us the building blocks to our current realities and give us the tools and the comprehension that we need to advance us. But no, simply teaching history to a reactionary Black or a racist white person is inadequate. And it will not change. As Bobby E. Wright said, the number one marker that will lead to the change, the permanent change in one's behavior and or thinking, are the consequences that are derived from that behavior and thinking. Behavior is changed and maintained, because just changing behavior is inadequate. You have to maintain the change. Behavior is changed and maintained through its consequences, its social, material consequences. So a white person could walk up and down the street and say, boy this and boy that, and learning the history that the African man, kings and queens of Mother Earth, the founders of the universe, all that. No, when brothers started punching him in their mouths, when our behaviors changed in relationship to being called boy, their behavior changed. When our level of consciousness, when our consciousness was transformed, our behavior was directed by that consciousness, and therefore white people had to make an adjustment. Now, did they stop hating us? No, they just had to take it underground, grumble it under their breath. They had to go form lodges and little clubs where they could be free to be, because they couldn't do it in the streets anymore. So what is more so, if you really want to change society, more so leveling consequences against those who are enacting harm on others, more so than educating or loving or showing them the error of their ways?
Uhuru Diallo, I just want to unite with everything you said. I also got in the private chat. I've got Anwo has a very great article on gender based violence that I invite everybody to check out. And the conclusion that I got from what you were saying is right. Education is not enough. It needs it, and and I'm simplifying things, but education is enough. It also needs organization, right? So with that, I want to invite.
Well, there's different types of education. You know, we are very familiar with muscle. One of the best, like, I love, they call boxing the sweet science. You can be highly, so the training and education need to go hand in hand. Education simply means to bring out. You can't really educate someone out of racism, because if they're racist to their core, the more skills and information and knowledge you give them, you will just make them more effective, more articulate, better traveled racists. Educate means to bring out. So education does not necessarily solve anything. It just better equips people to do what they're going to do. You can't really teach somebody to be humane. It takes a number of factors to do that. That's why a lot of times it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. Now, you can definitely structure society and structure systems and structure rewards and incentives in a society to get people to move more in the direction that you want them to move. And I, having been an educator, being married to an educator, having studied history, formally and informally, I'm not trying to reduce the significance of them, but I think we definitely, I hate to quote the Bible, but we don't want to be casting pearls before swine. We don't have to, we are not here to educate our enemies. We're here to defeat our enemies. And so we educate ourselves, we equip ourselves intellectually and materially to defeat them. And we've seen, whether you want to go to the Haitian Revolution and other decolonial struggles, that we don't have to teach or tell them shit. There's an old saying, I could show you better than I could tell you. And we find that when white people are confronted with organized Black power, regardless of how they feel about it, they make the necessary adjustments. Now, whether or not that adjustment is sincere and heartfelt or not, as long as we get the material outcome that we're seeking, then that's their problem. Racism is a white problem. Our vulnerability to racist is our problem. It is not our job to fix their racism. It is our job to fix our vulnerability to them. We have to remove our vulnerability, and that is something for them to struggle internally with. And they got the material resources they need, but yeah, I think there's been a lot of time wasted on educating oppressors, educating enemies, or even educating traitors. And there hasn't been enough energy put into leveling strict and direct consequences. We focus more on leveling consequences than we should on teaching our enemies. We teach our children, we teach our offsprings, we teach our allies, we teach our brothers and sisters, we teach our significant others. Everybody else, we fucking fight.
Well, then, Diallo, how then do I make this connection for the people that I'm encountering on the Twitter, right? That just are vehemently anti-trans, right? But don't understand that, like, we're getting anti-trans legislation that will, if it's not eventually, impacting your life in a negative way, history has unfortunately shown us, history and American legislation has shown us that it will in fact domino to overt oppression and repression, of more disenfranchised people, right? So for me, I think it's in Ohio where they got that law that says that anybody can come and inspect the genitals of a child sport, athlete at whim, right? And this that's a direct question, that's a direct connection to the African struggle, wherein African women are denied womanhood, right? So other than these blatant legislative episodes, right, how then do we make this connection? for
Well,
the
well, the protectors under racism, white hegemony, fascism, the protectors are the greatest threat, you know, and it's very obvious that the people, what the fascists always do is they create a false threat to protect you from as they reinforce and build their structure and infrastructure for their destruction. So, and they always, without, when the Emancipation Proclamation was enforced and the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment were ratified, the white former Confederates and slave owners were like, that this legislation is a threat to white women and white children. Birth of a Nation by Cecil B. DeMille showed savage, lust-filled black men who were literally snatching white women and children off the street and dragging them into the forest. And now, if Cecil B. DeMille was now, it'd be transgender women and drag queens snatching those same delicate women. But those same white people who were like, oh my goodness, we have to embrace the Jackson administration. We have to embrace the Christian Knights of the Ku Klux Klan to protect our children. At the exact same time, they were implementing land grabs. Those same white people, that's what black folks, when you talk about history, the slums weren't built for blacks. They didn't build those slums. When black people came from the deep south up to the north, you think they built all them high-rise slums overnight? Like Dick Gregory said, Harlem wasn't built in a day, baby. Those slums were already there. And the white people were the slum dwellers, the gangsters, the gangbanging drive-bys with the Gatlins. While they were driving they were creating a permanent underclass of white poor people. And they were in abject poverty, malnutrition, and economic dysfunction, broken homes, up until welfare, the New Deal. That's what we don't understand. The white elites were created through conquest and imperialism, and the white middle class was created through welfare that redistributed the wealth that was gained through conquest and imperialism and in slavery. And black people think we can entrepreneur ourselves to a status where white people didn't even entrepreneur themselves to that very status. I don't even know if I'm on topic anymore. Sorry.
No, you are. So many. You are.
All this stuff is interrelated.
It really is, because I'm actually working on a piece that ties legislation.
Yeah, D.W. Griffith, not Cecil B. DeMille. I'm sorry. It was D.W. Griffith that made Birth of a Nation. Thank you, Allison. So, yes.
I
get them crack.
I'll be working on that because let me tell you something. Before coming under the discipline that is African internationalism, bro, I would just like my political education was just beating everybody over the head with a copy of Blood in My Eye. And like specifically that section where the dragon gets in on FDR and the New Deal, and he gets into those pre-World War II economics. And you know how we use war to catapult that economy, right? And this is all now we're sitting up here talking about global warfare, and we started talking about gender and sexuality, and it sounds obscure, right? You corrected yourself, feeling like you didn't even know if he was on topic, but I think that's one of the things that we have to be able to do. There was a straight line almost.
Right.
From these issues into global oppression, right?
Right.
Capitalism is a result of a legacy of oppression and colonialism.
Right. So. Right. And black people, I know many black reactionaries out here talking about how U.S. is threatening to cut off aid and funding toward nations like Uganda and other African nations that have passed draconian reactionary laws against gay people, imposing the death penalty for homosexual acts. And they're saying that the United States imposing sanctions on African nations is colonialism, while completely ignoring the fact that the European and American and Western Europe evangelicals were the ones who literally wrote the legislations and went over there with their missionaries to impose the legislation. So you're using one reactionary colonial repression to fight another reactionary colonial legislation and imposition, while never even arriving at liberation. It's literally, we're trading one oppressor for I want the reactionary right wing neoconservative or conservative Christian nationalist white daddy versus the neoliberal white daddy. And they never even get to African interests, what's in the interest or what serves the interests of African people. So you got two people on both sides that are fucking absolutely wrong. And you try to come in with some rationality and come in with the facts. And even now, I think a lot of them are self-exposing. One of the irritated genie, who literally went to Africa to celebrate and to encourage them with their anti-gay legislation, anti-trans legislation, is now going on a speaking tour with David Duke here in the United States. You know, so I tell people all the time, the white nationalists, the Nazis, the skinheads, they have this term called like-minded minorities. When they talk amongst themselves, they understand that at the heat of the race war, the grand racial conflict, where they go against the mud people and the Zog, the Zionist occupied government, when they finally take down the frontline soldiers of the Jewish Zionist conspiracy, who are the mud people of lesser race and lesser intelligence, they understand that there will be a significant number of people of African descent that will take up arms on their side, on their behalf.
So, and then just give me one more thing I'm conceptualizing. I promise I'm gonna stop holding you hostage. But in my things that have come up for me recently, I've discovered that, or it has been explained to me that trans people, as far as are less than 2% of the global population, and that for me just goes to reinforce the instability of exchanging one scapegoat for another, right? And this is 2% weak. It seems like the entire sect of the African community that is unfortunately internalized right-wing traditionalism and these colonial mindsets, right? How are we basing, there's an entire agenda, right, to move us into this 2%, that one I can't conceptualize or refute. How would you address that, or Diallo?
Well, Goebbels said that the bigger the lie you tell, the more likely people will believe it. So they say that transgender people are taking over, that transgender women will replace women, cisgendered women, and that transgenderism is a dominant force in society. While the actual transgender community has been facing persecution nonstop, where they have no seat or status of power, and the few places where they have emerged, whether it's Walt Disney's Bud Light or the Biden administration, they have been tokenized and they're being put up front as tokens and to take heat and focus away from the real issues. So if you could tell a lie that a population that is extremely small, that is being hounded and persecuted, is actually one of the most powerful forces in society, people will believe it because it's such an enormous lie. Who would tell something that is so easily disproven? And literally, you got Jess Hilarious. I don't follow her, but she's going to go ahead and toe to toe. Has she said anything about the half dozen right-wing Supreme Court justices? Has she said anything about the red state legislature? Did she say anything about the cancellation of the CHIP program and the student lunch program? Anything about the budget and reduction in housing vouchers? The legislation and policies and economic priorities that harm women and children, that will lead to miscarriages, hyperexploitation, lack of health care, dental decay. Has she spoken on any of that? But she could say, oh, a transgender individual, just one out of the 0.5%, has an opinion she disagrees with and can extrapolate that to they're trying to replace us and displace us. So the grander the lie, the bigger the lie, the more likely the masses of the people are to swallow it. Because, to be honest, and I hate to, because I don't want to threaten my reputation of being a hater and a hater innovator. No one's greater hater than Bro Diallo, but people are genuinely good. So when a normal person encounters a psychopath, we tend to project our rationality, project our humanity on others, and really think, why would they do that? I wouldn't do that. Who does that? Who would do that? Like, generally confounded. So if they're telling such a grand lie, and even though there's no evidence to support this lie, it's such an audacious lie that no one would tell such an audacious lie. So it must be the truth. Because otherwise, if it's not the truth, then it's an absurd, audacious lie on a grand societal scale. And remember, it was just these same people that told us about 5 years ago that Sharia law was going to be imposed. Remember, there are northeastern states that literally changed and amended their constitution to ban the implementation of Sharia law. Every woman in the United States will be wearing a burqa. Remember, any day now. Remember, just 30 years ago, we were all going to be speaking a combination of Cuban, Spanish, and Russian. And any day, the United Nations, the Soviet Union, and the Cuban guerrillas were going to come and dock in southern Florida or come invade the Gulf of Mexico and they would tell these remember the missile gap? The Russian, they would tell these grand lies that are absolutely untrue, absolutely nothing to support it. And people believed it because it was so audacious that they just can't imagine. And the demonic, remember the satanic panic. And all the while, there are real societal threats, evidence-based threats to individuals and communities and groups that completely go ignored. And Black people really think the same people the same people that are telling us that transgender people are taking over the world and want to mutilate the genitals of all our children are the same people, literally, to a person that wrote that slavery was a job training program. And there are members of our community who want to embrace this same group to fight the transgenders and empower them to fight the transgenders while they can maybe like, okay, then we can reason with these people about slavery and academics. So, ain't no educating your way out of that. Some shit you just gotta throw down the tomahawk, as Kwame Ture says. Sometimes you just gotta throw down the tomahawk.
Uhuru. Thank you, Diallo, Bro Diallo, for your time. And I'm hoping to connect with you. Follow Black on Twitter, bro.
What's Black on Twitter? Spill?
I said follow Black on Twitter because I'm just saying follow. I like to say
Twitter is gone. You mean X?
You know what? I don't claim that. That's not my ministry. I don't know.
I've been looking at X. I'm glad he changed it to X. So now when I go to a quiet room to look on the internet and my wife walk in, I was like, baby, I didn't mean to pull this website up. I was looking for the old Twitter.
I'm not about to
I don't know where these titties came from. I was looking for some political social commentary on Twitter and I put in X and then it didn't really right. And I pushed X 3 times because I really wanted to hurry up and get there. And then it's just, I don't know where these titties came from. Let me go and I'm trying to find Twitter.
Real quick.
So, do you think? I got an alibi. Thank you, Elon, for that alibi.
Right. What do you think our resident big-backed African or African, what do you think he gonna do? Do you think that my political education, this may be cliche, but I'm gonna let you know I was born in 94 and I definitely filter very well who I follow and who I interact with on the social media, right? But cliche as it was, but Twitter was the origins of my radicalization, right? And it's kind of saddening me personally, right? And I was reading a whole article on this, but it definitely saddens me because there were spaces opened up that I couldn't articulate if I wanted to, you know what I'm saying? So I do see that. But do you think Twitter just gonna be completely gone? Because I mean, even MySpace ain't gone. What happened when you type in MySpace?
Well, right, I don't think it'll ever completely disappear, but Twitter is gone. It doesn't exist. It's being phased out. So yes, Twitter is gone. It is Elon Musk intellectual property, and he has decided to scuttle it. But Twitter X, the new Twitter X, will definitely exist in some capacity. So no, it won't go away. But I fast and I pray to whatever gods or demigods are out there that it does go to absolute zero, and that it does become like MySpace, just a remnant of its former self. But it will be replaced. I graduated high school in 92, so I'm old. I was grown before you came along. And believe you me, something else gonna pop up. I think when you talk about Twitter was your radicalization, I remember I was radicalized by the Black Books movement. In the late 80s, early 90s, there was a groundswell of conscious hip hop and independent bookstores and independent booksellers. And we go buy one little book. And I was radicalized and conscious by real shitty books like A Message to the Black Man in America. So I had to, right. So my radicalization, man, I went the hard, bumpy road, buying Final Calls and shit like that. So there will always be sources. It will always be something there. So it's going to be something. But
because I thought I wasn't praying hard enough. I wasn't singing hard enough in the choir. I was not. It was something I wasn't. It was me, right? My lack of faith and zeal towards our Sky Daddy is is why I'm oppressed.
Right. So see, yeah, but radicalization comes where, like, if you seek it out, you'll find it in the strangest places. I'm pre-internet, so many of my reactionary evolutions from a reactionary Black militant to a true Pan-African revolutionary, it there's no online record of it. We used to get together, like I said, barbershops, basketball courts, and lectures. I used to go to. There used to be a lot. The lecture scene was magnificent. I actually had an opportunity to see people like Dr. Clark, Dale Jones, William Mackey, many of the icons, Marimba Ani, Francis Cress Welsing. I had an opportunity to see many of them and interact with some of them in real time. So that was the lecture circuit. I don't envy y'all who had to go through Twitter and YouTube to kind of sift through all that. But radicalization,
the lecture circuit was kind of. I'm telling you that what happened to higher education after the 60s, where somebody like Malenga Karega can be the leading thought on Africana studies, and you know what I'm saying. So, yes, we suffered. The generation that came after y'all did kind of suffer in a way because we did not have the great lecturers and orators that their generation. Yes, most definitely.
Right. Yeah. So there's benefits and liabilities to every phase. But I think as long as Africans are around, we will have. As long as there are oppression, there will be people to rise up and fight oppression, and they will have varying degrees of success. As Del Jones says, revolution is a process; it's not an event. So, and it's a multi-generational process at that. So, wherever we can get it, that's why I'm on these socials mainly, for the purposes of radicalization and debunking a lot of the bullshit, especially coming from people who claim to speak on our behalf or seek freedom amongst us.
Exactly. And like Chairman Amali Eshatella tells us, we are working to kick the ass of the working class. Again, I want to thank you for your time, bro. Diallo.
You as well.
In the Twitter DMs, I'm gonna actually send a little proposal. It's an article that I want you to look at, and hopefully we can discuss and hopefully rap about it on camera, because I actually enjoy being on camera.
The XDM, the X.
Oh, excuse me, my bad, y'all. The XDM.
It's an X on my phone. They changed the bird. Is the bird on your phone?
No, the bird ain't. The
bird is gone.
The bird is no longer the word. I'm just saying. So yeah, I'm gonna send you a message, and hopefully we can wrap on that. And I really, really thank you for your time, and uhuru,
bro. All right. Okay, I just going against my own rules, but he didn't try to flex on me this time with his plants. He was humble. Like I said, the Lord loves all plants. Okay, I'll reshare. Let's see the link. You can jump on here with your questions, comments, and criticisms. I saw a question. Namdi, why is it that we have these reactionary messages in nasty guys in our community? Who you want to hunt on to the values? I don't understand. Why is it that we have these reactionary message in nasty guys in our community? I'm not sure what you mean. Who want to hunt on to the values? I'm not sure. Could you kind of retype that? I'm not sure what you're asking. How do y'all keep gnats off y'all plants? Question need. Okay. Okay. If you have fungus gnats, there's two things. When you water your plants, add peroxide to the water. Add peroxide. Just pour, a couple of tablespoons of peroxide in the plant and pour it in the soil. That kills the eggs. And when you get them, there's these things. They're attracted to the color yellow. I just got this off of one of the plants right here next to me. And this is just a sticky thing you stick in the soil and it attracts the gnats. There's a few of them on here. You see that? So you buy these things. I don't know. I think my wife ordered them. I don't know where she gets them. But you buy the yellow sticky things for the plants. So you kill the eggs by adding a few teaspoons of peroxide to every time you water the plant. And then you get these for the living ones. And it's a two-pronged attack. And I promise you, those little gnats, the fungus gnats, will go away. And also, between watering, you want to allow your soil to dry out as much as possible. You want to allow your soil to dry out as much as possible between waterings. Because it was, a few years ago, I'd be sitting here like, oh, they were all everywhere. But, what that generally comes from soil. When you go buy plant soil from the hardware store, wherever you get your soil, they're generally in there already. And before you use that soil, you can kind of like bring it into a sealed space and open it up and let it completely dry out. So the soil is bone dry. You don't want to use moist soil. You bring the bag home and it's had like some condensation and it's a little moist. You don't want the moisture. You can't spare the moisture. So you want to dry out your soil before you use it. Make sure it's thoroughly dry. And between waterings, let the soil dry out as much as the plant will tolerate. And when you do water it, put a couple of tablespoons of peroxide. It does not harm the plant at all. And you put that water and you get those little stickies for the ones, because once they're in the air, ain't nothing you could do. But they're very attracted to the color yellow. So you get these little yellow things. They come in the shape of sun and flowers and butterflies. I have like 3 of them stuck in various plants around here, and you'll be fungus gnat free. All right, I should do a plant power hour. PPP, PPH. I can't say PPP. I don't want the feds coming. I know some of y'all waiting for that knock at the door. Y'all waiting for that knock at the door, ain't you? Let me not joke. Ain't nothing funny about it. Run, get away with it if you can. But I'm telling you, we had a real bad infestation. I don't know. My wife had done something. She had like set some soil out on the porch or something outside, and we had a real bad, like they were everywhere. And we dealt with that for like 3 months. We hit the peroxide. You don't need any type of toxins or sprays and all that. Just hit the peroxide and the stickies. Is that it? Are we gonna wrap up early for the first time in the history of the show? And the comments are kind of coming fast. So if you have a question, I do try to star the questions, comments, criticisms. Oh yeah, I want that article. Because I had an article. What do I do with it? On gender-based violence. Oh, I just talked. Now here come a fungal gnat. Sucker gonna make a liar out of me. These little, what did I do? Oh. I lost y'all for a second. You're gonna make a lie out of me. Okay, I got a question here. Diallo, question. A lot of Black people think that what Africa is doing with the homosexuality law is removing European culture. Help us remove the confusion. Yeah, okay. That is not true. The anti-homosexual laws in Africa were conceptualized, conceived, written, and legislated from the United States. The US and Western European evangelical religious sex movements and think tanks have failed in Western Europe and the US. So they go out to reach fertile ground. Anytime you look beneath the legislation, one thing we tend to overlook is the tragedy of the growth of the evangelical, right-wing, hyper-conservative Christianity on the African continent. Dr. John Henry Clarke said, "We out-pope the Pope and we out-Muhammad Muhammad." These laws are not written in the interest of protecting African people. They are written in the interest of maintaining religious colonial hold. What did Kwame Ture say? They send in the missionaries and they send in the Marines. And the Marines soften you up and make you receptive to the aggression of the Marines. So no, you're looking at modern day missionary Christianity. So how can you be removing European culture? And let me tell you another thing about European culture. Persecution of homosexuality and gender nonconforming and strict, violently imposed gender roles are as European as fuck. Europeans have a long history. I don't know why Europeans get credit for being liberal and accepting of homosexuality. We confuse the Greek and Rome, and we don't even understand, because when you talk about homosexuality in Greece and Rome, it was not consenting relationship between consenting adults. The homosexuality of Greek was pederasty, PDF files, adult wealthy men taking advantages of enslaved children or youth put in their charge. They were not being the type of liberalism that we see in Greece and Rome is not the same as what we understand to be consensual relationships between adults. They were always hierarchical. They were always exploited. They were always dehumanizing. So the type of same gender homosexual, in fact, when the Europeans went into Africa, they are marked on the low level of gender dimorphism. How there weren't very strong distinctions between the roles and status of men and women. They thought that African women had way too much assertion and power. Same thing when the Islamicists, when the Islamic hordes invaded North Africa. One thing they will always tell us, we didn't subdue our women with enough energy and force. So you're not removing European culture. You can't defeat European culture with another form of reactionary European culture. No, Europeans have a very strong and consistent history of persecution of homosexuals, mutilation, tarring and feathering, castration, the violent sodomizing gays with hot pokers. So how can you say Africans persecuting gay Africans is purging European culture when persecution of homosexuals is European? And show me at one point of time, dating back as far as you want to go, where Europeans were not. Europe were not actively and aggressively persecuting women through various patriarchy and sexism and gays. Show me where. So no, that's just not the case. That is shown what has been called by some of our scholars a pathological denial of history. The history, the facts, the realities of the history of the past and the contemporary policies of today do not support the fact that persecuting homosexuals in Africa is in any way reducing the impact and power of white people in Africa. Where are we? That's it. A Greek society regarded. Uh, yeah. Okay, is that it? Are we done? I think I reshared. I'll share the link one more time if you want to type in a question, comment, or criticism that we can address. Where the homophobes at? They're so entertaining. So no homophobes took the bait. Anti-cis people who don't want to be identified as cis. Think cis is a slur word, you and Elon Musk. Anybody want to talk about how slut rap is ruining our daughters? Stigmatized. Any questions? I don't know how to identify questions or just people going back. Okay. Off topic of the podcast, but what's your thought about black teens going downtown to cause a commotion? I don't give a fuck. What the fuck should I care? What they got to do with me? First of all, I think that is hyped up by the media. I think that the if you live here down around here for a long time, um, if you look at Chicago, it's extremely imbalanced in terms of focus and resources. So you can go to neighborhoods like mine and you walk down our main streets, like you go up in the neighborhood and you have fully. I got Michael here. I'll be with you in just a second. Stay on the line, Michael. You'll find that the housing stock is full in my community. But if you walk up to the main street, the vast majority of the storefronts are bombed out. And we just had a here on the corner, just off of 47th and King Drive, there was a community room where they were throwing parties and it was live every weekend. And the city came and shut it down because of some code violation or something. Oh, you left me. So, okay, you can jump back in, Michael, and I'll get with you next. So what they have is for the last half century, they have divested from the infrastructure in Chicago, especially my wife grew up here in Chicago, and there were skating rinks, there were venues, and all that's been divested. And they concentrated all the city put more resources and emphasis on entertaining and attracting tourists from abroad than they did from stimulating and servicing and speaking to the needs of the masses. Right? And so everything that is anything is out of the reach. So all the fuck they got to do if they don't want the kids wilding is equally distribute the resources. They just put another like $3.4 billion into constructing a whole new city within a city, a whole new riverfront. And while you deprive all the other surrounding black areas, and you know, there was that book, A Tale of Two Cities, The Have and the Have-Nots. And I talked about before, you got this campus, the University of Chicago campus, you got the downtown entertainment district, the Daily Center, it is nakedly obvious how the resources of this city are unjustly and racially divided and distributed. And so you got people living in despair, under resourced, and they have access to that goddamn L train to go and see how these people live in lavish, raping the outer areas, extracting the resources from the struggling areas and going there. So yeah, young people. The problem with young people is not that they're wilding. My problem I have with the young people is that it's not conscious and coordinated rebellion. I'm very happy that the young people are rebelling. I'm disheartened that the older people aren't tapping into that justified rage, that justified contempt for the system and civil society, and sustaining, expanding it, and properly directing it. But I have no problem with black teens going downtown to cause a commotion. Who the fuck? No, and after you come to the white people coming to the South Side to extract and exploit the hood, you deal with that first. Deal with that first. And in fact, they were neglecting, Malcolm X talked about this in great detail, where he talked about suffering in silence. You want us to suffer in silence to pacify us. And they understand, they would prefer, they're using this to raise even more money. They're using this to justify even more exploitation. But they don't say anything about, you want to know who caused the commotion? Mayor Daley, his family, his father and his family have done more to drive billions of dollars of debt, sold off the parking rights to foreign investment, left the city in billions of dollars of debt, and nobody talks about it. But you want to tell me about some stolen candy bars and broken windows? Man, listen, I ain't got my tear ducts are all dried up. I'm not crying for downtown. Fuck downtown. Fuck downtown. They need to justly redistribute the resources. And I would tell young people that raise a commotion, bless your hearts. Bless your hearts. And it's better y'all go downtown and do that shit than be in your own community disrupting and messing with the old folks here. Diallo, would you consider debating on Sinetter's platform? For what? Turn up for what? I was on the Great Debate League. I considered it, but I don't know. It depends on the topic and the opponent. But I ain't about to get on there with any of them fucking clowns and characters. Motherfucking Moors and Black Hebrews. But if they could bring somebody that has a real valid point and able to articulate their positions, yeah, I maybe. I don't know. But that ain't something I got to worry about. I ain't got no invite, But so ain't nothing I got to worry. I might. Anything is possible. But I say it would depend on the topic and the opponent. If something of value can be gleaned from such an encounter without just adding to the spectacle. All right, we got less than 15 minutes, less than 10, just over 10 minutes left before we wrap this shit up. Anybody else want to holler at your boy? Anybody else want to holler at your boy? I have to sift through because people just hollering and talking at each other. There's a P. Do you have any opinions on the Sahel? Let's see. Let's get some quick questions. See, the comments just keep coming. Somebody asked about it's gone about the coups in Africa. We actually going to talk about that Friday. So we're going to be talking about the coups and the new leaders emerging on Friday. So tune in to Hey, you back? What's up, man?
So I wanted to get on slut rap for the last little 10 minutes. Little 10 minutes, because me personally, like and contradiction, whatever contradiction this is, I'm a huge Megan Thee Stallion fan, and her lyrics, I'm always tweeting her lyrics, right? And I was just listening to y'all's boy Ice Cube the other day. I was listening to y'all. I was listening to their boy, who that is, Biggie. And Biggie was saying something. I don't even want to repeat the lyrics that I just heard in What's Beef. You know what I'm saying? So slut rap, this
that's how it is. My shit is laid out.
Double speak. It's colonial double
shit.
Speak. Oh, yes, it is.
That shit is played out. You got the gall. All I make is one phone call. All y'all disappear by tomorrow.
What did he say? Don't you know the
kidnap kids, throw them over the bridge. That's how it is. When you need 2 gas to go to sleep, make your enemies start your Jeep.
But
moms ain't safe walking the streets.
But ladies, love yourself, because this shit could get ugly. That's programming your daughter. If your daughters listen to Traumazine, I don't know I don't know if they're savable at this point, right? Because it wasn't Biggie talking about what his pedophile friend does to kids. It wasn't
Gutter.
right. It wasn't what's another one? It's not none of these African men rapping about, literally spinning the block, right? So it's slut rap that's gonna do us.
Yeah.
It's women, telling their audience what they want to do to their man sexually. Same thing the African men have been doing, but it's the women telling. So how does this equate to the downfall of all of Black womanhood, and not, for example, the just one element, right? The medical oppression that they face.
Well, the here's the thing about the rap industry. It is a minstrel show. It is a minstrel show, and it has consciously been constructed as a minstrel show. And I have the artists I like and don't like, and there are many artists who are minstrels and anti-African propagandists. I think we're way off the mark if we are willing to engage in the debate of whether or not hip hop will elevate or destroy us. You know, I think again, this is another time where both sides of that debate are way off. Way off. This is something we have to remember as African people. By law, culture, practice, and historical precedent, anything created by the slave is property of the master. Anything. So, only things that we can claim as our own are things we create in freedom, or we create for the specific purpose of securing our freedom. Everything else is property of the master. Even if we create a genre of music, a trend in fashion, some dialect, or even create mathematical equations to help fly folks to the moon, or satellite guidance systems, or tungsten filaments for the fucking light bulb. Everything we've invented has gone to entrench the power of our oppressors and entrench our oppression. So the debate about hip hop, or the debate about basketball players, ball chasers, closing the wealth gap with their NBA contracts, all that is moot. So, all that to say, if you can find some outlet and enjoyment in video games and music, then go enjoy yourself. But understand that that is not the source of liberation, is not going into that or coming out of that. So as we debating whether or not Megan Thee Stallion or whatever, it's no difference. Is Biggie better than Tupac, or is LeBron better than what's it? Curry? Steph Curry.
Kobe. I thought it was
Or LeBron better than Kobe or Jordan? All that shit is moot, because all that shit is on. And like people say, who's the greatest hip hop? Who's the greatest in hip hop? Let me tell you, the greatest in hip hop is a bald head white man who ain't never rapped. The greatest in the NBA is an old rickety white man who ain't never dribbled a ball. Who made the most? Because how do you define the greatest? Who generate the most power? Who generates the most money? Who generates the most influence? You think Jordan's a great ball chaser? Yes, but the man who signed this check, you can't tell me he's not greater than him. So as long as we understand, we don't control this, we don't direct, we this is entertainment, this is an outlet, this is a diversion, this is an opportunity to blow off some steam. But the real work, we have to define what really belongs to us. We can love Beyonce, which I don't. You can love Megan Thee Stallion, but some people have a problem with that. Let's call her Megan the Mayor, just for so that people don't like.
Oh yeah, right, because she's manipulating the colonial English.
Right. She's Megan the Mayor. She's not a stallion. She is actually Megan the Mayor. Now I've had to have that debate. People like, she's not a real female because she got a stallion. That's why. And they literally took images and zoomed in on her genitalia of her. And was like, see, that's a testicle hanging out. I swear for God, I didn't make this up. And I'm like, so. And they
I
said
don't
that's
understand how
coded
y'all are
message.
not doing this to no other than black. When are y'all going and taking
Because
screenshots?
Rizza Islam said that he never heard any woman but black women denounce their men. Rizza Islam, let me get his direct quote. That's why black woman is the enemy. For a lot of these so-called conscious black people who want to liberate us, literally have a doctrine that the black woman is the
I'm highly
primary
interested
key
in this quote.
obstacle. Yeah, let me get the direct quote. I'll show it. Well, it was a tweet. Here it is right here. Let me just pull that right on up for y'all. I'll just share that screen. How do I share screen? I forgot how to work the computers. I never heard a white woman say, "Ain't no good white men out here." That's what he said, right? And so, for Riz's edification, I wanted to show him an article from where a blog post in defense of man-hating feminism by Janine de Montebastion. And I don't think that's a sister name. And I showed him All Men Are Enemies, which was a motion movie production straight out of Hollywood. All Men Are Enemies. Men Ruin Everything, which is Scum, the Society for Cutting Up Men, all white women. Now he named never heard of white women. How to Date Men When You Hate Men by Blythe Robertson. I Hate Men. This is one of the most prominent feminists and bloggers, Pauline Homage. I Hate Men. And so I went and just shared a few links of white women saying that there was another white scholar that said the most dangerous substance in the world is testosterone. That's what we need to ban, testosterone. So, but Rizza is out here, one of the most prominent black thinkers, is saying he ain't never heard a white woman say ain't no good white men. And white women have whole literary and cinematic genre talking about how white men are the enemy. But Rizza Islam, poor Rizza, has never been exposed. Only black. So yeah, there is a whole. But again, I think we're losing if we're fighting about, because these artists, Beyonce and Megan the Mayor, they are our class enemies, and they serve the interest of our oppressors. They are products of an industry that we do not control or direct. So if the music is not advocating for, sustaining, and supporting black liberation, then we can enjoy it. Like I said, whatever gets you off. If you like video games, if you like salacious blue music, they used to call it that in the day, blue music. I'm not saying you can't enjoy that. I'm not saying you can't get down with that. But you have to understand that is not where freedom is going into or coming out of. And even if we're able to settle the debate, and that again, that is not where people say it is going to free us or it's going to enslave us. It ain't neither. It's not neither. So Megan is not an oppressor. She's not a liberator. She is an entertainer. She is a celebrity. She is propped up, and they could pull the rug out and pull the plug out on her just as easy as they did on Kaepernick or that one other Muslim dude that was in the NBA that used to pray, or Craig Hodges. It don't matter your talent. When you are submitting in a part of that industry, they can pull the plug out on you. So we can't really look to that. But I think the debate is interesting. I don't understand why we're debating these things, because it's obvious Biggie is better than Tupac. But other than that, now that debate has been settled. But anything other than that, I'm not really sure why we fighting about this. What is to be gained?
I think it's because she's not going up there dressed like my grandmama dressed on Sunday. My 80-some-year-old grandmother dresses every day. I think she's not wearing the right. She's got so much. Like, look at me right now. Like I
found an article from 1926, and it talked about the salacious, scandalous women of the 20s. And they had a woman, she was a flapper, and she had a short bob haircut, and a what appeared to be a sequence dress, and she was smoking a cigarette in public. And they literally had next to her a woman in a Victorian dress, with the umbrella type dress, and she had on the done up hairdo and the corset, and they were like, womanhood is being destroyed by these women of the 1920s. Every single generation, they have these exact same things. My grandmother looked at my older sister, who is now in her 50s. My grandmother looked at my older sister and did like this girl when she had her dookie braids and when she was wearing biker shorts outside and she was putting graffiti and spray and spray paint her name across her behind in the 90s. When my sister was in her teen in the 90s, my grandmother was flabbergasted by how my sister, and guess what my sister's saying right now, who is now a grandmother. And I'm there to remind her, these girls today, and same thing that was said about her. This happens every generation. My uncles looked at me and was like, what is wrong with this boy? You got that funny high top fade haircut. You wearing them rayon silk shirts, and you're wearing your shirt off your shoulders, and you got on these funny pants and these funny shoes, and you're doing these funny dances. And now I got dudes with this that grew up with me, that was in the club with me, are now looking at the young people now with their face tattoo rap and saying the same shit. This cycle just goes on and on and on. And I promise you, you're going to live long enough where you're going to see Megan Thee Stallion, right? When she's out to pasture, when Megan Thee Stallion is in her 50s and can't shake it no more, when her knees are numb, when she no more good knees, when them knees finally give out, she's going to be sitting somewhere like Aretha Franklin talking about these young artists today. Because Aretha was titties all over Motown, titties all over Soul Train, and then later she was like, these young women today. It's just tired. It's comical at this point. It's comical. And I'm old enough to straddle generations. I'm old enough to remember my time in the clubs, and I'm old enough to look at my time in the rocking chair is coming up soon. So I'm straddling old and young, and I see both sides, and I don't know why every generation act like some new shit is happening. Even Del Jones would talk about this in his analysis. Del Jones said when he was a young man in the 60s, he said they wore their pants so tight they had to screw off their feet to put them on. And now people from that era talking about skinny jeans. I remember the 80s where Prince, the Purple Rain era, where Prince had these Beauregard dudes wearing fingerless lace gloves up to their elbows. And now they out here talking about these. I mean, it's just maddening to me. Like, well, you did mention history. That's another thing where history ain't gonna change a damn thing. Because every time somebody show a face tattoo weirdo rapper, I always love to post a picture of Grandmaster Flash, and them dudes were wearing leather trench coats with Speedos and nothing else. Nothing else. And I mean, go look at Run DMC and King of Rock. They wearing leather pants so tight you can see their veins bulging in their thighs. Look it up.
So how Megan come out and how Adina Howard come and say, and get on the hood of that beautiful.
Listen to Choice. You heard of Choice?
Choice? Let me
Choice.
No, I have. Sorry, too young. Sorry.
The Big Payback?
Oh, yeah. I know the Big Payback, yeah.
Yes. Choice, man. We used to, she had this song called Pipe Dreams. Yeah, every generation swear they were the first to do it. Everybody. Ain't nobody been as bad as the future generation. Ain't nobody been named. The generation that comes after me is always the absolute worst. Always. It's just the weirdest shit. I don't know why we keep playing this game. I don't know why. I had to share. You don't know how many dudes I had to share that picture of Tupac laying naked in a bathtub with gold chains covering his genitals.
Oh,
you ain't seen that picture?
I'ma find it now.
Every time somebody like, yeah, these are feminine rappers.
I had a whole train of thought, and I was.
I'm sorry. You asked me about Megan the Mayor.
I'm trying to consecrate my mind. I was just gonna tell you, Dr. Ball in the chat, firing up. I was just, I'm
Dr.
not.
Ball, he's a passport bro.
Oh, why are you bringing? See, you gonna get us banned, and it's not even me. I didn't even do it, y'all. So if you get us,
I'm just saying, ain't nothing. I wish something new. I wish there was some new horrendous, horrible thing happening because I'd love to have something new to hate on. But it's the same. I'm sorry. I'm sick of derailing you. We almost out of
no,
time. Go
not
ahead. Go ahead. What was
no.
you saying?
No, my point was literally, I literally don't understand, right? It and you probably didn't already explained it. Oh, no, you did, and I just realized you called Dr. Ball a passport, bro. I'm not gonna play with you.
He's over there overseas.
But I just don't understand. Like, again, we went over that specifically, that PDF file language in Biggie's lyrics, and then again going back to all of that other history, right, that you exposed me to. How do we go from that, and then we hear Megan get up there and say, sucketh and look in his eyes, and the next day I might leave him on red, and that's just, oh, we're done.
Yeah, like I said, this happens. This has happened. Little Richard was out there singing Tutti Frutti, and by the in the 60s, and by the 80s, he was condemning, saying, I'm a child of Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, and condemning the salacious music of his time. I remember listen, every generation they do this. Every generation. And what really pisses me off is there is still revolutionary, conscious, progressive artists and music out there. And I say, for every time, and I see people out here literally trying to share every salacious, pound town, brown, pink, brown, everybody, anything sexy red, they share all of that and swear that the culture is just diminished and destroyed. When I don't see nobody out here pushing and advocating and uplifting the conscious and progressive artists of this generation, or the ones from the past that are still banging out music. So, I think that people, like I said, whatever gets you off, whatever you want, whatever motivates or energizes or entertains you, as long as it's not harmful to others. But I really do think it is. I think it is wrong to say that Megan Thee Stallion is oppressing us or destroying the minds and culture of our people. But it's also wrong to pretend that she's an advocate for women or a liberator as well. Both of those assessments are wrong. Both of them, what they truly are celebrities, tools, minstrels, and instruments of the systems and institutions of capitalism. And when you're there consuming their goods, you have to have a level of consciousness not to be wrapped up in there. But if you want to put your hands on your knees, shake your ass on your thought shit, then do that. Especially if you didn't put in a full week of work, a draining ass grind of trying to sustain yourself and live a dignified life in this. I think any and everyone that want to put hands on their knees and shake ass on their thoughts, then more power to you.
You see, India Irina not messing with that though. Like Essence Fest. Oh no, she was not playing that. Black women, she got on there and made a whole rant. Black women, it's like that. That traditional set.
Here's my problem.
They can't have fun. They can't have fun.
Here's my problem. All my aunties have subscription to Essence. And when I would go to my aunties in them house, they would have, they all subscribe to Essence magazine, right? And that woman with them tight braids. And I would pick up that magazine and I would see nothing but the promotion of Western capitalist values and aspirations. That magazine is a wish book for capitalist and racial white integration. I could be wrong. And I hope and fast and pray that I am wrong. Maybe every now and then they might have some articles by a progressive radical woman, by Africana womanist, pan-Africanist radical thinker. But as I remember sitting on my auntie's couch while she gossiped with my mama, waiting to go, wishing I could get out of there, and I reach over and pick up a Essence magazine, I didn't see anything of substance in there. So it's weird to me that you can act like twerking is somehow a diminishment of Essence magazine when what was at that middle class, as someone says, bourgeoisie rag was ever anything but that. And I was in New York City when the woman from Essence, the sister from Essence, had like a restaurant and this boutique there, and the shit was overpriced and exclusive and hoity-toity. So I really don't see where what the loss is. I really don't understand what we're losing if we lose Essence.
Mhm, mhm,
So yeah, I think that Essence should be critiqued.
mhm.
But the critique of Essence, to me, and my issues with Essence ain't got nothing to do with the presence or lack of twerking
Mhm.
at their annual fest, but the fact that it was in a well poised, or should have been. There are so many black women on the front lines of the struggle there, and so on and so forth. And even when they tried to talk about political issues,
Mhm.
it was from the liberal, democratic, pro-capitalist, reactionary wing. I just don't see it. So it's not like we're losing anything from that rag. Me personally.
Right, right. I want to unite with that comment on Essence and twerking and whatnot. And I do want to get to Dr. Ball's comments. I'm not appreciating the we don't compete here. We're not competing. We are coming together. This is a session of dialectics. This is not a plant off as you would like it to be, Dr. Ball.
Right.
Um, we are like
I said the Lord created all plants equally.
I tried to
But
tell them.
yeah, I said we done made peace. I've
I,
lifted the band. You were banned,
I,
and I've lifted the band. That's why they don't want to see us coming together.
they don't. They don't.
You know.
That's why I'm trying to be on here next week too. So
Always. No, it's every other week. It's first
oh,
and third.
first and third, bad, perfect.
Oh,
All
I
right,
guess
y'all.
that's it.
Yeah,
We're gonna wrap
Uhuru
this up. Thank you.
join the African People's
You
Socialist
know.
Party.
All right. How y'all doing with them legal issues?
We are winning. We are
Good.
winning. We are filing. If you go to handsoffahuru.org, our the APSP lawyers are actually making the move to dismiss the charges against the Uhuru 3. So that motion will be filed officially soon. But of course, the
Did
part
did did can I ask you something that I shouldn't even be asking you on
do.
air? Did Ghazi snitch? Did Ghazi drop down?
I don't. That ain't none of my business. Stop
Because
now.
it seemed like Ghazi got locked up, and then all this, and Ghazi was
I'm
in
a,
that room with that spotlight on him, and he was like,
uh,
"Listen, I got some
yeah,
details."
yes, mom. You need me to do what? I gotta.
I don't know.
I don't have. That's none of. That's above my pay grade.
I just
Not
seemed
pay grade.
like everything was just going. Y'all was doing the work, been
Mhm.
doing for decades, and then all of a sudden,
Well, listen,
dude,
y'all come on and check out O'Malley Taught Me 7 a.m. Pacific time Sundays on the YouTube streets. He get into it. Let him because
uh,
I'm waiting for him to slip up on that myself. Like
I think
what's your
somebody
thought?
talking. Somebody talking. I don't know. Well, we'll have to wait for Ryan Coogler to make the movie, and then
Not
I'm just gonna
okay,
wait on
please.
Ryan to tell it. Huh?
Yeah.
That's what. If that's what I have to wait on.
Right, not no, but I really appreciate you asking, bro Diallo, and I really appreciate having the opportunity to share this on a platform. But to answer your question, y'all check off handsoffahuru.org,
Right.
and I want to let you know we are winning Uhuru.
Right.
Have a good night,
Get your
y'all.
primary source information. Go straight to Uhuru. All right, bro. Till next 2 weeks. All right, I guess that's it. We're gonna wrap this up. Skip played hooky. It was good. I saw Skipp in Kansas City. We had some Ethiopian food. I got to meet his two sons, his two vibrant sons, and he got to meet one half of my children. And we got to meet and break bread and roam around Kansas City a little bit. Skipp got to ride the Kansas City trolley train, and then he was in one of the finer hotels. He was in one of the whites only hotels. I don't know. I have to ask him. I got to go into one of the Crown Plaza Hotel. I'd never been. I was born and raised in Kansas City. I never set foot in the Crown Plaza. But then I walked in there and they say, "What you doing in here, boy?" And I said, "Oh, sir, I'm here to see one Josephus, aka Skipp Coon." They were like, "Oh, then by all means." And I got to see the waterfalls and the cascading crystals and the fake stones. It was really nice in there. So thank you, Skipp, for allowing me to. I don't know how you got in there to that high end, wealthy hotel, but I got to see parts of my own city I could never see because Skipp Coon got into areas I normally don't see colored folks, and it was beautiful in there. So it was really good. Yeah, you know the Crown Plaza, nice down there. Yeah, yeah. Up until now, I guess I think Skipp Coon, he Rosa Parks, the plaza. Skipp Coon, Rosa Parks, he's the Rosa Parks of the plaza. He got in places. And like I said, I thought I was going to show him around Kansas City, and he showed me parts of my city I'd never seen. So shout out to Skipp. So I guess he's still out there enjoying that. Let's all wish Dr. Jared Ball safe passage, that he's out there living the passport bro life. Geechee been passport broing even before that. So who knows? Maybe one day I too will get a stamp on my passport and be able to globetrot the world like Geechee and Jared. But until then, I'll just have to be one with the proletariat and the black masses. And I'm on level with y'all, not above y'all like them, globetrotting brothers. And anyway, let me get off of here if I say something else I don't have to say. But I miss Skipp. And you go to my Facebook, and me and Skipp, I have a picture of me and Skipp. He's looking very stoic, and I was trying to look stoic, but I couldn't help but grin because I was so happy. And I got a little preview of music. So I don't know. I might bring bootlegging back because I got a preview of unreleased music from Skipp. And if you ain't heard Skipp's music, you just go search Skipp Coon on YouTube. Some of the dopest music, like I said, contemporary, conscious, revolutionary music. While y'all complaining and crying about these artists who don't give a damn about you, instead you could go and support artists that do their work, that got the talent to get out there and get the big money, but choose to not compromise themselves. So anyway, I might bring back bootlegging. If you see me with my trunk open on 47th Street on King Drive with my trunk open. But nah, I'm not gonna bootleg Skipp. I gave him another couple of months to put his own stuff out, but I got access to some hot fire tracks. Ain't none of y'all up on that. See? But anyway, I guess that's it. I will see y'all Friday with the Earn Your Liberation show. What are we talking about? What Geechee talking about? I just saw I got a message. I don't know. Oh yeah, we're gonna be talking about the coup d'etats and the new emerging figures from Tanzania, South Africa, going up to Niger, and we might even talk about Nigeria and Kenya and what's going on our continent, our home, with our brothers from the motherland and our sisters from the motherland. So with that, I'm going to bid you an adieu, and I will see y'all Friday with the Earn Your Liberation. I think it's like our 30th show. Happy Black August to one and all. And then Monday, of course, the Bro Diallo broadcast will be live in effect. Oh, yeah, and we're going to have Jared's replacement. We're going to have Jared's replacement. We're going to be seeking someone to replace Jared. Thank you for everyone who made a contribution, to people who kicked in to help sustain Black Power Media Network. And with that, I will see y'all when time. I see y'all Friday morning. Peace.